How's it going, everybody? Daner here with North Central Coins, and welcome back to another episode of the most rare and valuable coins in Canada. Today we're going to be discussing several errors that you can find on your 1964 pennies that can make them worth some insane amounts of money. Now, 1964 was a very high mintage year for Canadian pennies, with over 400 million being produced that year. Usually Canadian coins will have a much lower mintage figure than their American counterparts, and in the case of this coin, its high mintage figure led to several anomalies and errors in the minting process. And if somehow any of these make their way into your pocket change, or you find them coin roll hunting, you definitely want to know what to look for so you don't accidentally let a gem slip back into the wilds of circulation. In this video, we will explore the historical context surrounding the production of these rare and valuable 1-cent coins and delve into why they hold such importance in Canadian numismatic history. Additionally, we will discuss any distinguishing and identifying features, their significance among collectors, and also the potential value if you were ever to find a legitimate example. Before I do get into this, I would really appreciate if you guys would smash that thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and also ring that bell notification so you can stay up to date with my new content as it is being released. And make sure to stay to the end of the video if you would like to find out how much you could get for these coins if you did ever find them. Then without further ado, what do you say we get right into it and discuss the 1964 penny varieties? Let's get it, guys. Canadian penny, produced from the year 1858 to 2012, is a discontinued coin with a value of 1 cent or 1/100th of a Canadian dollar. Although officially called the 1-cent piece, the terms penny and cent are commonly used. The adoption of penny likely stems from Canada's historical use of the British monetary system before the year 1858. Production of the Canadian penny officially ceased in May of 2012, and distribution stopped in February of 2013, making it no longer circulated but still legal tender. Vendors are not obligated to return pennies as change in Canada, and rounding to the nearest 5 cents is encouraged for cash transactions. Pricing in 1-cent increments is still possible for non-cash transactions like credit cards. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, the Canadian 1964 penny has a very high mintage figure of over 400 million, and usually when so many of a certain date is produced, there will be some errors or varieties associated with that date simply because they had to produce so many of them. These are some of the factors that can lead to there being errors or varieties on certain high mintage years for coins. Die wear and deterioration. With a high number of coins being minted, dies undergo considerable wear and deterioration. As the dies wear out, they may lose details or develop anomalies that result in errors on the coins struck. Die clashes. In high volume minting, the dies can clash against each other more frequently. Die clashes occur when dies strike each other without a planchette or a blank coin between them, leading to the transfer of details from one die to another, creating distinct errors on subsequent strikes. Variations in die quality. High mintages often mean that multiple sets of dies are employed in the minting process. Variations in die quality, such as differences in engraving depth or details, can contribute to creations of various coin varieties and errors. This increases the probability of anomalies. The higher the mintage, sometimes the greater the probability of anomalies during the minting process. Anomalies can include die chips, die cracks, and other irregularities that can contribute to the uniqueness of each coin. The notable errors for the 1964 Canadian pennies, such as the extra spine, hanging 4, missing MG, and the dot, could be attributed to these factors. The high mintage provided more opportunities for variations in die quality, increased instances of die clashes, and also increased the chance of anomalies, resulting in the creation of these distinct errors and varieties for collectors to discover. The large production volume of 1964 pennies adds a layer of intrigue and diversity to the numismatic landscape for that particular year. So what I will do is go through each of the different varieties and show you what you will need to look for to identify that particular error, and then once we have shown you each of the different varieties, we will break down the value for each of these coins. So first we're going to discuss the 1964 extra spine variety. The occurrence of an extra spine on the maple leaf could be attributed to a variety of factors during the die creation process. It might result from a die clash or an anomaly during the engraving or hubbing stages. Die clashes, where dies strike each other without a planchette in between, can cause unexpected details to be transferred from one die to another, leading to the creation of this extra spine. Now, to identify, what you want to do is look in between the two top branches of the maple leaf, and there should be a small extra spine protruding from the top right hand side. I will show an example of what you need to look for. Next up is going to be the 1964 Hanging 4. Now, in the past, for the 1962 pennies, I have discussed the Hanging 2 varieties, and these are basically the same, but instead you're looking to identify this die clash on the 4 instead of the 2. The Hanging 4 is typically a result of a die clash where the dies used to strike the coin come into contact without a planchette between them. This collision can cause the metal to shift and can create anomalies in the struck coin. The die clashes might have occurred due to the issues in die alignment or due to problems during the striking process, leading to this distinctive hanging appearance of the numeral 4, where basically it will look like there is a hook that is going above and running to the left of the top of the last digit 4 in the date 1964. Now, there can also be double hanging 4s and even triple hanging 4s. So the more of these lines or die clashes that you can identify will add to the number of hanging 4s on your 1964 Canadian penny. Now, next up is the 1964 Missing MG. Now, the absence of the initials MG, which designates the coin's designer, Mary Gillick, may be due to die deterioration, wear, or damage during the minting process. Dies undergo significant stress and wear over time, and if not properly maintained or replaced, certain details such as small initials may fail to transfer onto the coins during striking. Usually, if you are looking for the small MG initials, you would look on the very bottom of Queen Elizabeth's bust, running along the line of her shoulder, and there should be a small MG initial. Now, in the case of the Missing MG variety, it should be absent from the bottom of Queen Elizabeth's bust. And last but not least is the rarest of the 1964 varieties, which is the 1964 dot. The presence of a dot above the digit 9 in the date 1964 could have multiple explanations. It might be the result of a die chip, which a small piece of the die had broken off and leaves an impression on the struck coin. It could also be a cud, where a raised area by a portion of the die becomes worn or damaged. There is also the small possibility that the marking is intentionally put there by the Canadian Mint to distinguish them from other Canadian 1964 pennies, but that is much less likely. The rarity of the dot and its distinct appearance contribute to its desirability among collectors. Now, to identify the dot on the 1964 dot penny, what you want to do is look above the digit of 9 in the date, and there should be a small dot there. It is pretty pronounced and detailed. Even though allegedly it is not intentional, it does look like, from the examples that I have seen, like it was almost intentionally put there, but it basically is a small die chip or cud located above the digit of 9. Now, before we go over the values of these coins, some of the details and specifications. The overall mintage figure for the Canadian 1964 penny is 484,655,322. It is composed of 98% copper, 0.5% tin, and 1.5% zinc. It is non-magnetic. It has a weight of 3.24 grams, a diameter of 19.05 millimeters. The edge is plain. It has a die axis in metal alignment, as is the standard for most Canadian, British, and Australian coins. The obverse was designed and engraved by Mary Gillick, and the reverse by G.E. Kruger Gray. So let's get into the values for these 1964 penny varieties. What I will do is start with the least valuable and work my way up to the most rare and valuable of the different varieties. So first, we're going to start off with the extra spine variety. Now, if you can identify the extra spine, it doesn't add too much premium for any of these varieties on the low end. You might be able to get a couple dollars if you sell them online or to someone who is super into heirs or varieties, but for the most part, you want these coins to be in pretty good condition, which is not impossible. I have done a few penny hunts and I have found 1950s pennies that are in mint state. So if you find a roll of 1964s, that is probably your best chance if you bust it open, but you can still find mint state pennies if you are able to get your hands on a box or a couple of rolls from the bank. Now, if you can identify the extra spine, which will have that small extra spine located between the two top branches of the maple leaf on the reverse of the coin, it can be worth around $20 for an MS64 example. Next up is the 1964 Hanging 4. Once again, to identify the Hanging 4 variety, what you want to do is look for a small die clash, which will look like a line or a hook running along the 4 in the date 1964. If you can identify that, it can be worth around $20 for an MS64 and all the way up to $100 for an MS66, which is about twice as valuable as the regular 1964 penny without any errors or varieties attributed to it. And then we have the missing MG penny. If you can identify the missing MG, which will be missing the initials of Mary Gillick along the bottom of Queen Elizabeth II's bust on the obverse of the coin, it can be worth around $104 for an MS64 and around $170 for an MS65. This is one of the more rare of the 1964 varieties and definitely a good one to look for. If you're finding 1964s that are pretty beat up and worn, I wouldn't even bother looking for the missing MG initials because chances are it could have just worn off with circulation. So you want one of these to be on a mint state example. And then last but not least, we have the rarest of the 1964 penny varieties, the 1964 dot. Once again, to identify this, you want to look above the 9 in the date 1964, and you want to look for a small dot. Now, whether this dot is a die chip cut or it was put there intentionally, it does not matter. If you can find this pronounced dot above the 9 on your 1964 penny, it can make it an extremely rare and valuable coin, especially if it is in the mint state range. It can be worth anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000 from an MS65 to MS66 example. If you were able to identify the 1964 dot and it is worn and beat up, I would still send it in to be attributed by ICCS, and it can still probably be worth anywhere from $10 to $50 depending on how bad somebody wants the coin. Now, what do you guys think about these 1964 penny errors? What would you do if you ever found a legitimate example, or if you ever have found any of the coins discussed in this video? Let me know down in the comments. I would love to know. Also, I would really appreciate if you guys would smash that thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and also ring that bell notification so you can follow along with my new content as it is being released. But I think that is pretty much going to do it for this one, folks. So until the next one, everybody, peace out and have a good one, y'all.